We are back on Steele and Vance and Linda. Off the top of the show, we were talking about what we did this week leading up to voted.
Yeah. Went in, there was no one there, and the ballot was about that long. We have some video just because it's crazy to look at the number of names and choices.
It's crazy
that you have, and we're just talking about Vancouver.
We're
here.
nerds, and we don't know how many people are on
here. Scrolling and scrolling and scrolling because this video doesn't end. 137 candidates. 10 political parties. I can barely even remember which one
There's
the
more
former mayor's with. 15 people are running for mayor right now. We got 59 for council. It is just kind of bananas. So we thought we would do a Twitter poll and we would ask people, are you ready to go? Are you ready to cast the ballot? You know, determined? Do you have no idea? You're going to take a pass? And that was interesting. We didn't get a massive vote count because I think that speaks to a lack of interest in the civic election. But almost 50% said, hell yeah, my mind is made up. Mine was.
And I find that since voting, and I, as we showed, posted pictures of us with our little stickers on, and very proud to vote, got to vote, can't complain if you don't vote. That's so, you know, 64% of you that don't cast the ballot and you're eligible, please consider doing so. And, you know, you got to think about in terms of who you're going to vote for. You don't go on name recognition. You don't go through the ballot and go, I need to pick how many? Oh, 10. Click,
or
click, click.
Maybe we could change the way we vote. Maybe that would be easier. So I was having a Twitter discussion this week with a very smart man who we have brought into the studio. Stuart Prest is a political scientist. He's now with Quest University, Canada in Squamish. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
I did not know that Vancouver and Surrey are the only two major Canadian cities that don't have a ward system. I want a ward system. Should we have one? Would that make more sense than this ludicrous pile of names and umpteen parties?
I think it always makes sense to talk about this stuff in terms of trade-offs.
Yeah.
Every political system, every electoral system has trade-offs. There are advantages to the current Vancouver system and some real disadvantages. And we are keenly aware of some of the disadvantages in terms of wading through 60 candidates for council and 10 parties, half of which didn't exist prior to this election.
Right.
So there is a complexity to the Vancouver system that we don't see elsewhere. Ward systems, they help us have representation from every corner of the city. Just like at the provincial, federal level, you have your riding, and so you know who is speaking for your little corner of the city. There are some downsides to that too, where you may not like the person who is speaking for your particular district. You may see the same person winning the district again and again, where incumbents, people who currently have the role, continue to win that office. They may represent the same district for years on end, so we don't necessarily have the change in changing of the guard that would bring new ideas into the system. And one of the real differences between the Vancouver system and what we see elsewhere is when you are elected to represent a ward, you're campaigning, you're sort of incentivized to make promises to your little neighborhood, to your neck of the woods.
Yeah. Right.
You're not elected to think about the city. You're not elected to think about Vancouver, Surrey, what's in the interests of this entire municipality.
Because what's good for East Van isn't necessarily good for the West Side, which isn't necessarily good for the River District, which isn't necessarily good for Point Grey. But enter into all of those things. So when going in, and I know a lot of people, and you and I were talking about this after voting, a lot of people come to us and say, okay, who do I vote for? You know, and how to navigate that ballot. And a lot of people think they have to check all of the boxes that the directions say at the top. Explain to us, if you don't mind, Stuart, what is involved in making that choice of just like, well, I voted for the ones that I know, now I'm going to check the rest of them, versus just go in, and even if you only vote for one person that you know.
With more choice, there's more strategy, more sort of thinking about what is your ballot stand for. And so you can, if there's one party, no party in this election is running a full slate of 10 candidates. If there's one party that really stands for what you think is right, and you don't want to see another party sort of coming alongside, there's only, say, 4 councillors you believe in, then you can just check off those 4 names. Sometimes that's called plumping the ballot. You're really just emphasizing those candidates and not giving support to someone else who might finish ahead of them.
Right.
If you finish off your full ballot, you can sort of give fuller expression to all your preferences. So you're helping everyone who you like more than everyone else, the other 50 candidates. You're helping them all get a chance, even if it means someone that you like a little bit less gets ahead into one of those seats. So there's a strategy there. There's always going to be choices for voters, no matter the system.
I despise the party system because it's a big machine and it feels ugly and testy and people are taking pot shots at each other. I'm curious to know what you think of the Vancouver Police Union coming out and saying, we've polled our members and we believe that the ABC Vancouver party is the one that you should vote for. Is that a good thing or is that dangerous? What do you think?
So when I try to talk about these things, I try to say, on the one hand, on the other hand, give the different points of view. This is an issue where I feel pretty strongly, I don't think it's good. I don't think the police should be providing this kind of endorsement because they are responsible for essentially the enforcement of the state's monopoly on the use of force. They have a unique role in our domestic politics. We can just look at what happened in Ottawa a few months ago where there was a protest and it seemed like some of the police, while the police as a whole were committed to doing something about that situation, many of the police actually on the front line seemed to be either sympathetic or even actually supporting this protest ongoing. And so as soon as you introduce that doubt, we don't totally know if the police are being impartial or maybe they're shading things. Maybe they're being a little more tolerant of some protests than others. Maybe they are looking to find ways to support some candidates over others. They're not in that impartial role. Given the power that they have within our society, we give them so much power. It's not just a question of whether they're carrying arms or not. They are essentially the sharp end of the power of the state. And when they are choosing sides in terms of who is going to be in charge of the local government that oversees policing in Vancouver, then they've stepped out of that impartial role. And even if they are scrupulous about not doing anything that is favoring one side or another, there's that perception that they're not playing it straight anymore. And that perception can be really corrosive all by itself. And so I think when we are talking about those agents of the state that have that power within our lives, we really want to see them being impartial. They, as citizens, can of course go out and vote, and they can have personal Twitter accounts, and they can make the case for what they're trying to do. But speaking as a collective whole, it's just a different beast.
Well, both Kennedy Stewart and Colleen Hardwick, both running for mayor, have said that if they're elected, they'll try to get a bylaw passed to bring back the ward system. We shall see, but it's going to be very interesting on election night to see what happens because there's a lot at stake and there might be change. Let's hope the voter turnout.
I want you to come back. We need twice as long. Fascinating stuff and putting you on the spot and giving us your perspective is much appreciated.
Stuart Prest, thank you so much for coming in. Political scientist with Quest University.
Next time he gets wine.
Yeah. When we come back, to change or not to change your last name when you get married. Is it a practical or a patriarchal decision? Laws and opinions are changing around the world. We have thoughts.
I definitely have thoughts.